Hey y'all, it's your girl Spicy and Chocolate. I'm back at it with another video, and today we're gonna watch a black woman claims a blind girl is her daughter, but then a shocking truth is uncovered. Let's see what this about, y'all. Let's see.
James, Melissa's husband, was an important and influential businessman who had worked all his life to achieve a good financial status. Melissa, on the other hand, was a woman from a good family, the daughter of immigrants. She had come to Chile thanks to a scholarship to study medicine at the best university in the country. It was during their time at university that the two met and quickly fell in love. They spent years of great happiness while building a huge company together. However, there was something that filled the young woman with insecurities, as she knew nothing about her in-laws, and every time she asked her husband about his childhood, the man seemed to hide everything about his family. This fact filled Melissa with intrigue and distrust, and she confronted her husband on more than one occasion. He would only calm her down by saying that he did not have a good relationship with his family. Melissa decided to put her doubts aside and concentrate.
Now that's a red flag. If a man don't want to tell you about his background and nothing about him, that is a fucking major red flag right there.
On forming a life with James. In this way, the years passed. Everything seemed perfect in Melissa's life. The couple received a piece of news that surprised him a lot. It turns out that James's parents had died in a terrible car accident a few days ago, leaving their only son as heir to all their great fortune, including the huge mansion of the deceased. After hearing the news, Melissa was
His parents is rich. I wonder why he didn't have a good relationship.
very saddened as she never got to meet her in-laws. James, on the other hand, lived in a constant depression, suffering in silence the death of his parents, but refusing to talk about them with his wife. Seeing this, Melissa went to great lengths to cheer her husband up, but nothing seemed to be enough to cheer James up, until the day she discovered him in his room, looking at old photographs of him as a child while crying. It was then that Melissa talked to her husband and suggested moving to the old town of his childhood, to his parents' huge mansion, because maybe that would help him to move on and overcome his inner traumas. So they both agreed to start from scratch in a small town far from the city. They sold their apartment in the capital and arranged everything in their company to work remotely. Days later, they settled in the rural town of Saavedra, a town in Chile with many natural resources. Unfortunately, this picturesque little town was going through a period of poverty and unemployment, causing an increase in crime. Fortunately for the people, James's parents' mansion was located in the wealthy part of town in a residential complex full of luxurious homes and wealthy families.
So you telling me y'all was living in a apartment where your parents had a big ass mansion? Mm-mm. Something ain't right about this story.
Where peace reigned and people seemed oblivious to the reality of poor people. The first few days after the move, everything was rosy. The couple was happy and James was smiling again as he longed to be back in his hometown after so long. However, there was something that Melissa didn't like, and that was that she seemed to be the only person of color in the whole neighborhood. All of her neighbors were white-skinned people with racist personalities, a situation
I couldn't live in no all white community. It got to be a mixed community or something because that's too uncomfortable. That would be too uncomfortable for me. Being the only black person in a white neighborhood and a racist. Like, I'm not doing that.
that made Melissa very uncomfortable, and she had to endure all the offensive comments and looks of contempt every time she left the house. This whole situation made Melissa very sad, but she was willing to put up with it for her husband. As time went by, the couple began to adapt to their new life, but there was something they still lacked, and that was that they both wanted a child more than anything else in the world. For a whole year, they tried to conceive, but every pregnancy test they took came back negative. In the end, the young woman decided to look for a new alternative, and James found an excellent doctor on the internet who specialized in artificial insemination treatments. At first, Melissa did not seem very convinced, but after a long conversation with her husband, they both agreed to go to this doctor's office and perform the expensive insemination procedure.
Okay.
$1,200, $5,000, and this one is $3,000.
Fortunately, everything
Okay, something don't seem right about this. I don't know. I always be hearing crazy stories about women going to doctors and they get like, I guess, to try to get pregnant and then have the sperm put into them and end up being somebody else's baby at the end.
Everything went as planned, and a few months after she started seeing the doctor, Melissa was finally able to get pregnant. And to add to their joy, 3 months later they found out that they were expecting a baby girl. A little girl named Angelica, who would serve to bring James and Melissa's marriage back together. Sadly, all this joy was to be short-lived, for one morning while her husband was away on a business trip, Melissa was alone at home going through the mail when a very strange letter caught her attention. It was a letter signed by the doctor who treated them during the artificial insemination process and addressed to James. Melissa did not want to go through her husband's correspondence, but something in that letter gave her a very bad feeling. So she decided to read the contents of that envelope, and what she read changed her life forever. Dear Mr. James, I am pleased to inform you that the process of selection and alteration of the genetic material was a success. The child will not be born with any genetic disorder and will have the appearance you specified to me during our meeting. White skin, blue eyes, and straight blonde hair. This letter was to remind you of our monthly settlement payment of $30,000 plus the extra amount for risks and possible legal consequences. As
Oh, that is crazy. I see what he did now. He did something to make the baby look like just like a white person. Didn't want the baby to look nothing black at all. So I wonder why was he married to a black woman or had a baby? He wanted to have a baby with a black woman or be with one. That's kind of weird.
I remind you that eugenics is punishable under the law of our country. Melissa could not attest to what she had just read. She had been duped by her own husband and an unscrupulous doctor who had played God for money. The young woman was very upset, and before she reached her husband, she threw her belongings onto the street. When James finally arrived home, he saw a huge mess of clothes and personal belongings lying on the sidewalk. He immediately attempted to enter the house only to be greeted by Melissa, who was accompanied by a police officer. Before he could react, James was handcuffed and taken to the police station for questioning. He was about to receive a 14-month jail sentence for complicity in an immoral act, in addition to several $1 million in restitution for Melissa. For his part, James's hired doctor pleaded guilty to medical malpractice and narrowly escaped jail time, but he will never again be able to practice medicine anywhere in the world. When detectives in the case asked James why he had planned such a heinous and immoral act, he only replied what he did not want his daughter to be a brown-skinned person, as his late parents never agreed with his relationship with Melissa solely because she was a woman of color. For that reason, James believed he would honor their memory by giving them the granddaughter they wanted so much, one who was white with blue eyes.
Oh, so that's why she couldn't meet his parents. And he ain't never really talk about his parents because his parents is racist. And then now you want to live out your parents' dream, just have a daughter that's all white when the mother is black. That doesn't even make sense. I wouldn't even deal with them. And then why would you deal with a woman then if you don't want your kids to be that color?
And blonde hair. After his statements, the authorities said that James was an unfit person to be a father and gave full custody to Melissa. In this way, the months passed, and the young mother gave birth to a beautiful baby girl named Angelica. A beautiful girl who looked
Aw.
very much like her mother but differed in skin color. However, the bond that united them was greater than that. Melissa had kept half of her ex-husband's possessions after the trial, and for a time lived with her daughter in that mansion in Saavedra. The malicious and racist comments from her neighbors were not long in coming. Throughout the year, the neighborhood gossipers made hurtful comments about the poor woman and her daughter, calling Melissa crazy and even a child thief. On more than one occasion, they tried to call the police to report her for kidnapping, only to be laughed at by the police department, making a fool of themselves for their ignorance. Fortunately, Melissa managed to sell the house and move back to the capital to start a new life with her little Angelica.
Oh.
This story teaches us that a mother's love is above any race or skin color, because God is just and protects all his disciples equally.
Right. Oh, that was a nice story. Yes. Can't stand a racist motherfucker. Yes, leave people alone. That's her baby. But wow, I couldn't believe her husband would do that. That's super weird. She didn't need to be with him anyways. Well, alright, y'all. It's your girl Spicy and Chocolate. I'll be back at it with another video review. Until next time, I'm out.